Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Brigadier General Beagle, the commanding general here at Fort Jackson, and I appreciate this opportunity to add additional details and facts to the very unfortunate incident we had occur here right outside of our gates and within our local community this morning. As a short recap of the incident that occurred, we had a 23-year-old soldier in training, or what we refer to as a trainee, jump our fence line with his issued weapon and make his way into the community. During this process, he was able to gain access to a bus that had 18 children on it. He did make it known to the driver up front. He did not want to harm anyone. He just wanted to get to the next town. What we assess right now, based on everything that we know and having scrubbed through his counseling, feedback from his direct leaders that he had since he's been in training only for 3 weeks at this point, that he was very quiet individual, hailed from New Jersey, one relative that we know of, and so we assessed that he was just trying to make an attempt to go back home. At some point, he left the bus. He did leave his weapon. His weapon did not have ammunition, but to those in the community, those on the bus would not have been aware of that. But he was holding himself accountable for his weapon as he fled from his unit, but no weapon. At this point in training, no ammunition is issued given 3 weeks in. Part of what they're issued every day is their weapon. As part of what we call weapons immersion, we do things like drill and ceremony and other types of training without live or blank ammunition. If ammunition even were to be issued, it would not be issued in the unit area. It is very strictly controlled at a different site, and accountability procedures there are very strict for ammunition. But again, that was something that would not have been known to those in the community. But I do want to thank Richland County, worked very closely with Sheriff Lott earlier this morning in the apprehension of him, local community leader people as well, for their alertness and awareness to make the calls. Because as he left the bus, one thing that he was trying to do, because he was in his physical training uniform, was trying to acquire new clothes and a ride, which we assume would have been to a bus station, the airport, train station, in order to make it home. There is nothing that leads us to believe through his counseling or through anything in his screening records coming in that this had anything to do with harming others, harming himself, or anything that links to any other type of nefarious activity. Understanding that 3 weeks in, we do experience several soldiers that over the course of their initial stages just have that desire, that anxiety, and due to separation from their families to get home. And we think that was truly his intent and nothing beyond that. I do want to express a great deal of sympathy to those parents, to the bus driver, to our community. We are part of our great community here, and we take that to heart every single day. We not only live in the community, we are part of it. And to our community, this is something that was a failure with regard to me and my role in terms of our accountability procedures and processes. So for me, this was a key failure in our accountability processes that I will fix going forward, because the outcome potentially could have been much worse. We are thankful, very grateful that it was not, but that leads me to what procedures to change here in the future so that we don't have an incident of this nature. And with that, I'll open it up to any questions.
General, what was the soldier doing immediately before leaving the base?
Immediately before leaving the base, they were at a point prior to going to breakfast. So we call that personal hygiene time. So during that personal hygiene time, they will all have their weapons. Again, no ammunition in it. They're doing their personal hygiene to prepare to go to breakfast. So part of what we assess right now, him taking the weapon, if a weapon's left behind, you would immediately know a person's missing. But by taking the weapon, now you kind of give yourself a little bit of time and space, because the weapon is not missing. Someone could be just around the corner or in another location. But by doing that, we think he had a little bit of insight and just to how to give himself enough time, enough of a head start to get away from the unit.
So did anybody on base realize that he had left or was in the process of leaving before he hopped that fence and started interacting with others?
Yeah, so there's several other trainees in the local area that noticed immediately that he was missing. So pursuit through the drill sergeant and other cadre knew that he had been reported as not part of the formation, and they immediately started to pursue him. But again, knowing our area, the wood line, now you're looking for a needle in a haystack, but they were in pursuit very closely after the point he left, but there was still a gap in time where he gained a head start.
Do we know what that gap of time was, how long it took for you guys to realize that he was gone?
Right now, we don't have an exact estimate, but we estimate about 30 minutes from the time of other trainees reporting he's not here, given the activities that they were doing. They're brushing their teeth, they're doing personal hygiene type things, and then they notice one of their peers is missing, report that to the chain of command, report that to drill sergeants. But as soon as they reported it, there was immediate pursuit.
How old is he?
He's 23 years old. Yes.
In addition to the charges you may be facing, from the sheriff, what about any disciplinary action here that you guys can take?
Yeah, and the disciplinary actions that we can take here, given this is a little bit different. So now you're looking at things just as an example, absent without leave, the theft of a weapon, because again, he was issued it, but now you took that weapon off the installation. So there's other things that we can do even in conjunction with what would occur on the civil side.
You talked about accountability, or any other members of his unit or any other individuals here on base going to be reprimanded or face consequences as a result of this?
As we look through all the procedures, we have to see where that break is. And as I pointed out, just the overall break in our accountability. I mean, that is part of what we're known for day in and day out. But as we peel that back to see exactly where the breakdown was, right now I'll just caveat it as the overall failure in accountability in our systems and our processes. But again, issuing of weapons every day, that's part of what we do. So we can't necessarily call that the breakdown in and of itself, but I have to see if there are any other gaps in that accountability process.
After climbing that fence, how far did he actually go before he was able to get on that bus?
That I do not know, but it was in the vicinity of Highway 77. So from there to Percival Road, not very far for those that know the local area. But I think the key part of it was the bus, as I understand it, was onboarding students. So as he's searching for rides, searching for a way to get transportation, bus is there, doors are open. Now I'm on the bus with a weapon, which I'm definitely sure it was frightening to not only the driver but the kids as well.
Where is he right now, and has his family been contacted about him?
The next of kin are being notified right now, and he's still in custody at Richland County.
You mentioned he jumped a fence. Is there any monitoring of that fence? Why did no one see him jump that fence?
Parts of our fence line are not monitored. I mean, close to the gates, obviously they are, but where we have heavy wooded areas, not monitored. They're not electrified by any means, but the top have either barbed wire or concertina at the top of it. And so that area that he left was not particularly monitored, but you could see it from Highway 77.
But there was barbed wire on that?
Yes.
You know that the school will be offering counseling services to students and the bus driver about this incident, but anything for your soldiers specifically, having a conversation about what happened this morning and how to move forward from this incident?
Yes, and this is something that we can't, shy away from. We have to really peel it back from all angles. That includes the conversations down to the lowest level with the trainees, because part of it, again, we experience those that have anxiety from being away from home, but there's better ways to deal with that, to get help or just make contact with family members. Some cases it's as simple as that, but you take very drastic actions just to give yourself peace of mind or satisfaction, which we think that's what he was really searching. No harm to anybody, but I want to go home.
What type of weapon was he issued? And can you kind of describe it in layman's terms? Like a rifle? Or?
It's a rifle. So all soldiers here issued a M4 rifle, carbine rifle, 5.56, but again with no ammunition in it. That's the standard weapon that they're all issued.
To your knowledge, has something like this ever happened before?
In the past, and I've been here, understand, 35 months. So we've had a couple of AWOLs since I've been here. Typically, we'll see those after our leave periods during Christmas. Others are close to the points where we're separating someone, and that lack of patience to wait to be properly separated, they will make attempts. But the ability to get over a fence, again, in a densely wooded area, if you happen to get away, where some gaps are in the system. We've seen that happen in the past, but never with a weapon.
What's typical protocol for an AWOL soldier trainee?
Once we receive them back, pending any military, justice or disciplinary actions, then we'll separate them from the military. So that process could take anywhere from a week to a couple of weeks, but you're also, again, looking through all the details. You're looking into the mental state, mental status of that person. We still do medical checks as part of them being processed out, and then they're properly separated if there are no other underlying issues.
And when something like this happens, do you suspend training for the other trainees or the other soldiers?
No, in this case, we suspended training briefly, one, to make sure we had overall accountability of all weapons here. And that was the immediate action done when something like this occurs, when we have a loss of accountability, even for, minutes, we put out what we call a be on the lookout. So our gates are closed, our MPs are out, units are searching, helping each other search, for an individual if we think they're gone. So all those actions happen, which essentially froze our training for a period this morning.
So at the 3 weeks point, obviously they did not have ammo. At what point would they start working with ammo, or would that come into the equation?
4 weeks in is roughly the time they will start with very small amounts of ammunition. Again, they will have their weapons go to a range where the ammunition is accounted for. They get issued the ammunition, and then they go into their live fire marksmanship training. But he was about a week away, a little bit over a week away from that period of training.
But even at that point, they would not have their weapon with ammunition except at the range.
They will never have the weapon, and only on the range will they have the weapon and the ammunition at the same time. Once they leave the range, there are search procedures that we do. We call them shakedown procedures. We wand to ensure that there's no rounds that they could hide or sneak away anywhere before they're allowed to come back to their unit area with their weapons.
I know you're early in the process here, but you're referencing the defense that might not be monitored. Has there already been discussions about perhaps increasing, monitoring of those areas, or has that begun at all?
Well, that's something we've always looked at here. With 52,000 acres, there's a lot of fence line and areas to monitor around the entire installation. So now we'd have to look at different areas. So as I look over our accountability procedures, our force protection procedures, all those things, then we'll completely look at that as well. What areas may need more monitoring, because they're patrolled, even some of our far out areas, but we'll look at those also.
Have you been able to speak with the individual yourself?
No, not yet. Not since he's been into custody, nor has the chain of command. Richland County, and I've spoken frequently this morning with Sheriff Leon Lott, so they're going through their procedures in terms of interviewing the individual, and then he'll be released back to us.
And how will you be sure, you talked about accountability, that this is going to be an isolated single incident and he's been drafted and communicate with any other colleagues that they can also do the same thing?
Yeah, part of it, on top of just the accountability procedures, which we're pretty comfortable with. They're pretty solid. I mean, this has only happened, once, here in the last 3 years, but it's the bystander piece. And it was a question that was raised earlier. As soon as someone sees something that looks slightly off or even hears something, that needs to be reported. But you think about all of those trainees that are, just only a few weeks away from home, again, maybe dealing with their own anxiety. They don't really know how to react or respond. So we have to go back and talk about how to, not be a bystander, but, if you see something, say something immediately.
What kind of mental health checks are done on trainees to try to keep a tab on if someone may be in a vulnerable state, maybe something?
We have a couple of checks in there. As they in process, they'll get through our reception. They'll have behavioral health screens there. They have behavioral health screens when they come through MEPS, so the military entrance processing stations. They'll get behavioral screenings there. We have chaplains available that are always there. If they're encountering difficulties or some type of anxiety, they're going to get counseling there, and then referred to our local behavioral health here on post. If it's at a level that we can't handle, then we leverage our great partners here locally in Columbia and our healthcare network to get them a higher level of behavioral health if needed.
Once an individual attempts something like an Awol, is he ever admitted back in, or what happens after he goes to the chain of command?
Rarely do you see anyone that goes AWOL admitted back in, just given the circumstances, the situation, and the fact that you leave an organization without proper accountability, without proper authority. That's not in line with our Army values, and then so you see typically a majority of those will be separated permanently.
Mental health has been a challenge, I think, for every community, but I'm curious, how would you assess the situation in terms of the mental health of some of the soldiers that you serve with?
I think the mental health overall, from what we see coming in, and granted we will process through about 50,000 soldiers per year here at Fort Jackson, the mental health is pretty good, but it's in the early stages. Just because someone has a higher level of anxiety of separation, many first time away from home is the first time they come to Columbia and the Midlands, and it's there where we watch a little bit closer. But just the general state for the many that we do graduate every week, that mental state is pretty good. And with the systems in place, with the counseling, with their leaders, with their drill sergeants constantly talking to them, counseling. I mean, he had a very solid counseling packet, and he was known to be just a quiet individual, no problems, no issues, no other disciplinary challenges that he had, in the 3 weeks that he's been here. Once we ensure that his next of kin have been notified, then we will release his name.
You mentioned the relationship with the community, and this was, I guess, a couple incidents now in the last several weeks where
Yeah, so with regard to our relation with the community, and given, bad things are unfortunately going to happen, and we hate when they do happen, but given our relationship with the community, how strong it is, how much we communicate, how much we interact with our community, we appreciate that. We appreciate the fact that we do have a strong relationship, and we appreciate the understanding, even when something does not go well for us here at Fort Jackson, but always part of our role is helping our community heal. Regardless of what the incident is, making sure we're open, transparent. I'm open and transparent with our community so that they know, what we do to prevent, anything from occurring again. We never want to have a repeat of anything major or at this level of this particular incident, and just what we do day to day, because we do a lot of dangerous things here on installation, things that could affect our community, and we want to be great partners and great stewards of the relationship that we have with Columbia and the Midlands.